The girl in the white dress stood alone on the rooftop of the hotel bookmark, her figure silhouetted against the darkening sky. The hem of her dress was stained deep red, dried blood that clung to the fabric like a grim reminder of everything that had gone wrong. Her body trembled, swaying as if gravity itself had no more hold over her. Her face was streaked with tears, her lips trembling as she fought to keep from collapsing. Somewhere, far below, the wedding guests were still lingering, unaware of the tragic spectacle unfolding above them. They were all gathered to celebrate love, unaware that they were on the verge of witnessing the last breath of a broken dream. I turned to Ethan. His face was pale, eyes wide with a frantic, desperate energy that spoke volumes of his inner turmoil. His fingers were rubbing together nervously, his entire body rigid as he stared up at the rooftop. For a moment, everything else around me faded. The voices of the guests, the soft hum of wedding music, even the sun setting in the distance, none of it mattered. All that mattered was the girl in the white dress. The girl who was about to end everything. And then, a chilling realization hit me, I had been here before. Reborn to the very day my nightmare began, the day of my wedding. Before I could stop myself, I grabbed Ethan's arm. "Ethan, where are you going?" His expression darkened, and for a fleeting moment, there was a hint of impatience in his eyes. "Can't you see?" he said, his voice strained, "Someone's about to jump. I have to help her." But I wasn't letting him go. I refused to. My grip tightened on his arm, and I could feel the pulse of my own heartbeat in my fingertips. In my previous life, when Ethan had run off, he never came back. The next time I saw him, he was holding Lily in his arms, walking away from me without a single glance back. The ambulance had long since left, and no one had given me an explanation. I had been left alone to pick up the pieces of my broken wedding. "Not this time," I whispered to myself, barely able to breathe. In the days that followed, the truth had been twisted, distorted, and turned into something ugly. The internet, in its infinite rage, had painted me as the villain, the home wrecker who stole another woman's man, the one who had caused a pregnant woman to lose her child. And when the life of that woman had been lost, the world's sympathy shifted, leaving me behind in a cloud of hate and shame. I had thought, in my desperation, that if I could just wait for Ethan to explain, if I could just hear his side, maybe things could be salvaged. But the truth was never spoken. The videos went viral. The headlines screamed my guilt. The world had condemned me. But this time, it would be different. This time, I would make sure the truth was heard. I pulled Ethan closer to me, my voice low but firm. "Ethan, you don't get to walk away this time. You don't get to leave me behind." For a moment, he stared at me, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. But it wasn't enough. His gaze turned to the girl on the rooftop once more, and without a word, he yanked his arm from my grasp and turned to run. I was left standing there, frozen. Helpless. Watching as the one person who could have stopped everything walked away once again. And that's when I heard it. A voice, cold and mocking, cutting through the silence. "Summer, you've got no shame, do you?" I turn. Ed to see Lily, standing there with an air of superiority, her arms crossed over her chest. She was smiling like the cat who had just caught the mouse. Her eyes gleamed with a sense of triumph, as if she had already won. "You really think you can compete with me for Ethan?" she sneered, stepping closer. "Look at yourself. Do you even deserve him?" Her words hit me like a slap across the face. I had heard them before, in my previous life. But it didn't matter. She didn't know the whole story. No one did. I clenched my fists. You think this is over? I said through gritted teeth. You think you've won? But Lily wasn't done. She tilted her chin up with a smirk, her voice dripping with disdain. Everything that's happened, every piece of this mess, is your fault, Summer. You brought this upon yourself. You got what was coming to you. I could feel the rage bubbling up inside me, my pulse quickening, but before I could speak, Ethan reappeared at my side. He reached for Lily's hand, wiping it gently with a tissue. A gesture so casual, so distant, as if I didn't even matter anymore. Lily, he said softly, his voice laced with regret, I've explained this to you before. I wasn't listening anymore. I couldn't. I turned away, forcing myself not to cry out. Not to show weakness. Not to let them see the pain that was tearing me apart inside. Because this time, I would take control. This time, I wouldn't let anyone dictate my fate. Not even Ethan. The events of the wedding day unfolded like a nightmare in slow motion. The crowd's murmur faded, drowned out by the sound of my own frantic heartbeat as I held Ethan's arm, refusing to let go. His cold eyes met mine for a brief moment, but there was no recognition, no understanding. He was already thinking of the girl on the rooftop, the one whose suffering had pulled him away from me, away from what was supposed to be our day. I had watched him before, in another life, leave me behind without a second thought. His betrayal had shattered me completely. But now, I wouldn't let him repeat the same mistake. Not this time. Let go, Ethan snapped, his voice tight with frustration. She needs me. She needed him. The words hit me like a slap, each syllable reminding me of the cruel reality of our relationship. The girl on the rooftop, the girl who had so selfishly stolen his attention, was the one Ethan had chosen over me. A girl who, in another life, had turned my world upside down and left me with nothing but the wreckage of my reputation. But not this time. This time, I would make sure everything was different. Before Ethan could turn away, I acted instinctively. I didn't think. I didn't care about anything but the weight of my grip on his arm. Ethan, I said, my voice trembling with barely contained fury, this wedding isn't over yet. We are not over yet. His body went rigid under my touch, but I didn't let go. Not even when his voice, filled with a sudden weariness, cut through the tension between us. Summer, he said quietly, you don't understand. You never understand. The words stung, but I held my ground. My heart raced, not from fear, but from the rush of anger and betrayal that surged inside me. In my previous life, Ethan had left me stranded, discarded like a forgotten memory, as if my feelings had never mattered. I had believed, hoped, that if I just gave him time, he would explain himself, that the truth would come to light. But I had been wrong. The truth never came. Instead, the world turned on me. A few days after the wedding, when the last of the guests had departed and the hotel had emptied out, the fallout began. It came fast, like a wave crashing down on me. One moment, I was drowning in disbelief, the next, the internet had exploded with accusations. The viral video had made its way online, the footage of the day's events turned into a twisted narrative. My face, tear-streaked and desperate, filled every screen. The wedding, once the symbol of my dreams, had been reduced to a spectacle of scandal. The video didn't just show the chaos of that day, it painted me as the villain. The homewrecker. The comments were relentless. People, strangers I'd never met, called me every name in the book. The edited footage, capturing my frantic grip on Ethan's arm, made it seem like I was stopping him from saving the life of a woman who had tried to take her own. I could barely watch. But I couldn't look away either. The online world, the very one I had once thought of as a safe space, had turned into a virtual courtroom, and I was the accused. The world believed the lies. They believed the narrative Lily and Ethan had crafted, where I was the gold digger who had ruined their lives. And what's worse? They cheered. They celebrated my fall from grace as if it was the rightful end of a story. I had tried to fight back. I had tried to explain, to clear my name. But it was no use. Every message I sent, every post, was buried under a mountain of hatred. The lies had taken root, and nothing I said could change that. Lily, the woman Ethan had chosen over me, had turned the tables. She had taken full advantage of my situation, using her words like weapons. She taunted me in front of Ethan, her voice dripping with venom. "You really think you can compete with me for Ethan?" She sneered, her eyes cold and unfeeling. "Look at you. Do you even deserve him?" Her words felt like daggers. But it was Ethan's response that made my blood run cold. He didn't defend me. Instead, he stood there silently, looking at me with eyes that seemed to say everything. "Gee, I feared you got what you deserved." Lily's smirk widened as she clung to him, her hand possessively wrapped around his arm. "You're not going to help her either, right?" she purred, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "She almost became your bride. Surely, you wouldn't actually feel sorry for her." Ethan, ever the coward, didn't respond. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than any words could ever be. My heart shattered. Days later, the phone call came. Ethan had sent me a bill. The wedding expenses, broken down in excruciating detail. Everything. My dress, the flowers, the food, all of it. Each item was marked with a price that added up to a staggering total. Almost $1 million. I stared at the document, disbelief settling in my chest like a lead weight. This was our wedding. Ethan was supposed to have paid for nothing. This was my family's gift to us. His family had never once discussed the cost, knowing. Gee, that it would be covered by mine. Yet here it was. A bill. A demand for me to pay my share. But that wasn't all. Along with the bill, Ethan had included his bank account number, as if I were a simple transaction, a mere inconvenience to be sorted out. He called me. His voice was as cold as I remembered. "You saw the bill, right?" he asked, the indifference in his tone enough to make my stomach turn. "Double-check everything and transfer your share. Don't waste my time." I could hardly believe it. After everything that had happened, he had the audacity to demand money from me? The wedding I had dreamed of, the future we were supposed to share, had been turned into a transaction. A cold, businesslike exchange. And then, Lily's voice cut in over the phone, sharp and mocking. "Summer, you are so shameless," she sneered. "If you spent the money, you should pay for it yourself." What? Didn't manage to seduce Ethan? Now you're trying to scam him for cash? Her words were venomous, but they were only the beginning. She went on, threatening me in ways that made my blood boil. "If you dare try to weasel out of this, I'll make you pay another way." The call ended abruptly. I could feel my rage building, a fire in my chest. But the question lingered, how far would they go to make me pay? The moment I saw that video, I knew it was over. My life, the one I had carefully built up until this point, was crumbling in front of my eyes. Every detail, every moment of what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life was twisted, distorted, and turned into something dark, malicious, and irreversible. The footage had been cleverly edited, each frame designed to shift the narrative, to cast me in a light I could never have imagined. It began with the moment I grabbed Ethan's arm. The camera angle had been deliberately chosen, zooming in on the desperation in my eyes, on my grip tightening like a vice. The captions, those malicious little words, painted a picture of a woman obsessed, a gold digger who had only one goal, to steal Ethan away from his true love, the pregnant woman, Lily, who, according to the video, had been the true victim all along. I wasn't just the homewrecker anymore. I wasn't just the woman who had stolen another's man. No. I had become the villain. In a story I didn't even recognize. I was the one who had almost caused Lily's death. I was the one who had almost destroyed their lives. The video had gone viral in a matter of hours. The online community, so quick to judge, had already decided I was the one at fault. They didn't care about context. They didn't care about truth. What mattered to them was a well-crafted story, one that justified their anger, their righteous indignation. They wanted someone to blame, and I had been Han. Dead to them, tied up with a bow of fabricated lies. As the hours passed, the internet buzzed with hate. The hashtags flooded social media, all targeting me. Hashtag homewreckersummer. Hashtag selfish bride. Hashtag greedy gold digger. Every post was more venomous than the last. People who didn't know me, didn't understand, were using their voices to tear me down. They called me despicable, unworthy of love, unworthy of anyone's sympathy. The insults weren't just online. They seeped into every part of my life. My phone rang constantly, only to be met with cruel messages, threats, and reminders of how the world now saw me. I tried to call my best friend for support, but even she was hesitant. She was scared. She was afraid of being associated with me, afraid of the backlash that was consuming me. Then, the worst part of it all happened. I saw Ethan and Lily's faces. On the screen, they were calm, collected, perfect together. They had already come up with a version of the story, a narrative that painted them as the innocent victims and me as the villain. They had orchestrated it all, every little detail. Ethan's silence, his refusal to intervene, had been a part of the plan. He had known the truth, and yet, he chose to stay silent. He let me fall. I felt my heart shatter all over again. But it didn't stop there. The accusations turned into something far worse. People didn't just believe the video. They believed Lily's version of the story. They believed that I had caused her miscarriage. They believed I had driven her to the brink of suicide. All because of a moment of desperation that had been captured, edited, and turned into the perfect weapon against me. The phone calls from Ethan didn't stop. Each time, his voice was colder, more distant. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't even acknowledging the pain I was going through. Instead, he was just moving on. The life he had shared with me, the promises he had made, meant nothing now. He had discarded me for her. For Lily. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could do was watch as my life crumbled in front of me, as the world turned against me. It felt like I was suffocating in a storm that no one could see, no one could understand. The truth didn't matter. All that mattered was the narrative they had created. And that narrative was final. But the storm didn't just stay on the internet. It spilled over into my real life. Ethan wasn't the only one who had a role to play in this twisted drama. Lily had taken it one step further. She had hired a team to handle the public relations disaster, to further distort the story and cement my reputation as a manipulator, a liar. The media blitz started. Articles, blogs, and videos all over the internet accused me of everything under the sun. They painted me as a villain in every sense of the word. The press loved drama, and they fed on it like vultures circling a carcass. They didn't care about me. They didn't care about the truth. All they cared about was the scandal. And I was the center of it. The worst part was that no one was offering the smallest hint of support. Not even my own family. They didn't know how to handle it. My parents, who had always been my pillar of strength, didn't know what to do. They were devastated, of course. But they were also scared. Scared of the media backlash. Scared of being associated with someone like me. My mother cried, holding her hands to her chest, wishing that she had never agreed to this wedding. My father cursed Ethan, called him a two-faced bastard. But that was all they could do. They couldn't defend me. They couldn't even speak my name without fear of being caught in the crossfire. Days went by in a blur. It felt like I was drowning, and every breath I took was harder than the last. Every time I thought I might catch my breath, another wave hit, crashing into me with more force than the last. The internet wasn't done with me. The world wasn't done with me. And Ethan, he was nowhere to be found. I had no one left. And then, when I thought things couldn't get worse, Ethan sent me a bill. It was an itemized list of all the wedding expenses. Every single thing that had been planned and paid for, my dress, the venue, the catering, the wedding team, was included in the bill. And at the bottom, it was highlighted, my share. A total close to $1 million. I stared at the numbers, my vision blurry with rage. This was supposed to be our wedding. The money had come from my family, but Ethan hadn't paid for a single thing. We had agreed on that. But now, he was demanding I pay up. He was sending me the bill. And attached to the bill was his bank account number. I couldn't believe it. After everything that had happened, after the lies, the betrayal, the destruction of everything I had ever cared about, he thought I owed him money. He wanted me to pay for the wedding that had never even happened. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Lily's voice echoed through the speaker. Her words dripped with mockery, sharp and cold. "Summer," she said, "you are so shameless. If you spend the money, then you should pay for it. After all, you didn't manage to seduce Ethan, so now you're trying to scam him for cash, huh? Keep dreaming. If you don't pay up, I'll make sure you regret it." Her words burned like acid in my ears. My chest ached with anger, with disbelief. These people, Ethan and Lily, had destroyed me, and now they were trying to take everything I had left. But I wasn't going to let them. Not this time. I wasn't going to be silent. The storm of online hate didn't stop, and neither did the pain. With every passing hour, the viral video continued to spread. Every mention of my name, every comment, every tweet felt like another knife in my back. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't hide from it. The world had already made up its mind. To them, I was guilty. To them, the truth didn't matter. I was nothing but the villain of a story that was out of my control. My family was devastated. My parents, who had always been the pillars of my life, couldn't hold back their tears. They had worked so hard to make this wedding perfect, pouring every bit of their love and resources into it, only for it to collapse in the most painful and public way possible. They had never been the type to argue or speak ill of anyone, but this time, my mother couldn't keep her anger in check. She cursed Ethan and Lily, calling them both names that were far harsher than anything I could have imagined. I tried to console her, but it was no use. There was no fixing this. The hate was far too loud. The night after the video went viral, I sat alone in my room, staring at the screen of my phone as the notifications flooded in. Every ping, every ding, was a reminder of what I had lost. And then, when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, when I thought I was finally going to snap, I saw it, the message from Ethan. It was simple, cold. And yet, somehow, it was worse than an insult I had received. I sent you the bill. Double-check everything and transfer your share. Don't waste my time. The audacity. The nerve. I had no words. I couldn't understand how someone who had once promised to love me, to care for me, could turn into someone so heartless, so cruel. This was supposed to be our wedding, our day to celebrate love. And yet, here he was, demanding money from me, acting as though I owed him something. As if my heartache, my pain, the ruins of my life didn't matter. The bill was attached to the message, a ridiculous itemized list of wedding expenses. Each expense marked with my name. Every single thing that had been specifically for me was highlighted separately. The total, nearly $1 million. I stared at the numbers, at the words that mocked me. My eyes burned with fury. This is what you want from me, Ethan? After everything that happened? After leaving me in the ruins of this broken wedding, you want me to pay you for what? For your shameful betrayal? I clenched my fists, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. My heart was breaking, but my pride wouldn't allow me to fall apart. I had no intention of paying a single cent. I wasn't the one who had caused this mess. I wasn't the one who had lied and deceived. And yet, here I was, being asked to clean up his mess. As I sat there, seething with anger, my phone rang again. This time, it was Lily's voice on the other end. Her tone was mocking, sharp. "Summer," she said, as if I were some inconvenience to her, "you are so shameless. If you spent the money, you should pay for it yourself. What, didn't manage to seduce Ethan, so now you're trying to scam him for cash? Keep dreaming. If you dare to weasel out of this, I'll make you pay another way." The words felt like daggers. Lily, the woman who had destroyed everything I had once hoped for, was now rubbing salt in the wound. Make me pay another way? What could she possibly do? Before I could respond, the call ended. Just like that. No further words. No remorse. I was left staring at the screen, trembling with fury. I had nothing left. My reputation was in tatters. My family was ashamed. And the two people who had meant everything to me were now the ones who were taunting me, laughing in the face of my pain. The world had turned against me. But I wasn't going to let them win. Not this time. I had already been through this once before, and I wasn't about to let history repeat itself. That night, as I sat in my darkened room, stewing in anger, my best friend called me in a panic. Her voice was frantic as she sent me a link. "The wedding video," she said breathlessly, "it's gone viral again. But this time, it's worse. You need to see this." I clicked the link without hesitation, my heart racing in anticipation of what I would find. The video had been re-edited again. This time, they had spun the story even further. Now, they weren't just accusing me of ruining a wedding. No, they had taken it a step further. The narrative now claimed that I was the one who had selfishly prevented Ethan from saving a life. The video zoomed in on the moment I grabbed Ethan's arm, refusing to let go. The edited captions twisted it into a story of greed, of a woman who didn't care about anyone but herself. I was being painted as a cold-hearted person, someone who had no regard for human life, only for my own desires. As the video played, I felt my stomach twist into knots. The lies, the manipulation, it was all too much. Every second of the video reinforced the image of me as the villain, as the woman who didn't care about anyone, not even a life hanging in the balance. I couldn't breathe. But then, something in the video caught my eye. Ethan and Lily's faces were blurred out. Only mine was shown in full, every frame zoomed in on my face, my expression, my every move. I hadn't realized it in the heat of the moment, but now it was clear. This wasn't just an accident. This was intentional. The video wasn't just leaked, it had been orchestrated. Lily, I thought bitterly. It was her. She had paid Samion to boost the video's reach, to make sure that the entire world saw me as the villain. She had set this up, knowing exactly how it would play out. She knew how to manipulate the internet, how to turn public opinion against me. I sat back, feeling numb as the video continued to play, the insults flooding in once again. The entire world was watching, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The next few days passed in a haze. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think of anything but the hate that was raining down on me. Everywhere I went, people looked at me with disdain, with judgment in their eyes. Even people who didn't know me, didn't know the truth, had already formed their opinions. The damage had been done. I couldn't escape it. The internet had already branded me the homewrecker, the villain. And worst of all, Ethan, the man I had loved, had turned his back on me. I hadn't expected him to come to my defense. He never had in the past. But even in the deepest corners of my heart, I had hoped that, just once, he might care enough to stand by me. I was wrong. I couldn't believe it. There, in black and white, was Ethan's demand, his bill for the wedding expenses. $1 million. It felt like a sick joke, the kind that wouldn't stop until you were buried beneath its weight. What hurt the most wasn't the money, it was the coldness of it all. Ethan had been the one who'd begged me to marry him, the one who had promised we'd be together. But now, after everything that had gone wrong, after the destruction of our wedding, he expected me to pay him back for my own ruined dream. I felt sick. Absolutely nauseous. I slammed my phone down on the table, the screen facing down as if it would stop the truth from staring back at me. My hands trembled. My breath came in shallow, uneven gasps. How had things gotten this far? How had everything gone? So terribly wrong? Ethan, once the love of my life, had become a stranger, a man who had the audacity to ask me for money as if I owed him anything at all. Before I could react, my phone rang. I didn't even need to look at the screen. I knew it was him. Summer, his voice came through cold, mechanical. Did you see the bill? I closed my eyes, trying to steady myself. I had to respond, had to show him how ridiculous this was, but words failed me. Instead, I took a deep breath. This is our wedding, Ethan. You really expect me to pay for everything, after all that's happened? I spat the words, every syllable heavy with the weight of my disbelief. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When he finally spoke again, I could hear the frustration in his voice. Summer, I'm not asking for much. I've explained this already. This isn't about us anymore. It's about the mess your family created. His words were like daggers, each one twisting deeper into the wound that was slowly consuming me. My family didn't create this mess. You did, I hissed, my voice thick with anger. You and Lily both. Don't you dare blame them for your selfishness. There was another long pause, and I could feel his impatience radiating from the other side. Listen, just pay your share. It's all over now. All over. The words echoed in my mind. It's all over. I couldn't hold back the laugh that burst out of me, bitter and hollow. It's all over? Is that what you think? You think it's just going to be over for me? That I'll just write a check and pretend nothing happened? On the other end, I could hear him let out a sigh. Summer, please. Just this once. Do it for your own peace of mind. Peace of mind? How could I have peace of mind when my entire world had shattered? When the people I loved had turned on me? When my name was smeared across the internet, and there was no way to escape the truth that wasn't the truth? No. There would be no peace. I'm not paying, I snapped, my voice final. There was a silence, and I could feel the tension between us tightening like a noose. And then, just as I thought the conversation was over, another voice cut through. It was Lily. Summer, you really are shameless, aren't you? Her voice, sharp and mocking, made my blood run cold. You spent all the money on your wedding, and now you want to pretend you had no part in this? You almost got Ethan to marry you, didn't you? So now, you're trying to scam him for cash? Keep dreaming. I could hear her sneering on the other end, and a cold rage boiled inside me. The audacity of her to speak like this, like she hadn't just ruined my life along with Ethan. Lily, shut up, I spat, my voice low but furious. You're the one who's destroying everything, not me. Don't pretend you didn't plan this from the start. You think I don't know? I'm not some fool you can manipulate. Ethan's voice came again, softer now, but there was no mistaking the condescension in his words. Summer, you know how things are. The wedding's over, and everything's settled. It's time for you to accept it. Accept it. I had never wanted to hear those words more in my life. But I couldn't accept it. I wouldn't. Not when the world had torn me apart without so much as a second thought. Not when Ethan, the man who once promised me everything, had cast me aside without a care. You're unbelievable, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. You think I'll just let this go, don't you? You think I'll crawl back, begging for forgiveness? Before I could respond, Lily's voice came through, taunting, venomous. If you don't pay up, we'll make you regret it. Trust me, you don't want to make me your enemy. The threat hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating me. My heart pounded in my chest as I heard the line go silent, the conversation ending abruptly. The call was over. But the weight of their words, their demands, lingered. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I stared at my phone for a moment, my thoughts spinning. Every moment of my life felt like it was spiraling out of control. I had nothing left. My reputation was destroyed, my family was broken, and Ethan was gone. He had chosen Lily. He had walked away from me, and there was nothing I could do to fix it. I could feel the tears threatening to spill, but I swallowed them down. There was no time for tears now. No time for self-pity. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about a ruin. Wedding. This was about me reclaiming my life. I had been knocked down, but I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The next day, I woke up to the harsh light of reality. But there was something different in the air. Something that felt like a shift. I had to act. I couldn't wait for Ethan to come crawling back, for some grand revelation or apology. I couldn't rely on the kindness of people who had already turned their backs on me. No. If I was going to make it out of this mess, I had to take matters into my own hands. But how? I paced around my apartment, the weight of everything pressing down on me. Then, a thought occurred to me, a dangerous one. But if it worked, it could change everything. I needed to make Ethan and Lily pay for what they had done. I needed to make them see that I wasn't someone to be underestimated. And so, with that thought in mind, I began to plan my next move. The game had just begun. Is that what you think? I scoffed, my voice dripping with sarcasm. It's all over now? You think you can just walk away, Ethan? After everything we went through? He was silent for a moment, the silence between us thick with unspoken words. But there was something in his pause, a hesitation that made my blood run cold. I had seen that hesitation before. It was the same hesitation that had marked the end of our relationship in my past life. It was the same hesitation that had made him choose Lily over me. Summer, he finally said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. I didn't want it to end this way. You know that. But this is what's best for everyone. Best for everyone? The anger inside me surged. I had been through hell. My reputation had been shattered, my family humiliated, and now, I was supposed to just accept this? To accept him walking away with no consequences? No. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. Not again. I gripped the phone tighter, the words burning on the tip of my tongue. You think I'm just going to roll over and let you ruin my life again, Ethan? I could hear my voice rising, shaking with fury. You think I'm going to just accept your explanation and go back to pretending everything is fine? There was no apology in his voice, no remorse. Just that same cold, detached tone. Look, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to clear this up. I need you to help fix the mess you've made. It's what's fair. Fair? I laughed bitterly, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty room. Fair? You want me to fix your mess? Do you remember what happened the last time I tried to fix things for you, Ethan? Do you? My heart raced as I pressed forward, unable to stop myself now. Last time, I tried to be the good person. I tried to make things right, and you left me to clean up the wreckage. And you know what? I ended up being the villain. I ended up the one everyone hated. And you? You walked away without a care in the world, holding Lily's hand like she was the only one who mattered. Well, guess what? Not this time. There was a pause, longer this time. I could feel his confusion, his frustration on the other end of the line, but I wasn't stopping. I couldn't. Not when everything I had fought for, everything I had believed in, was slipping through my fingers. You don't get to do this again, Ethan, I said, my voice steady but fierce. You don't get to just walk in here and pretend everything is your way, and I'm just supposed to accept it. I've had enough. A soft chuckle escaped him, but it wasn't the laugh I remembered. It wasn't affectionate or amused. It was bitter, empty. You really think you can stop this? You think the internet will just believe you? After everything that's happened? My breath caught in my throat. Exactly what he was referring to. The video. The accusations. The viral hate. It was like a trap I couldn't escape, no matter how hard I tried. What do you want me to do, Ethan? Help you clear your name? Help you get rid of this mess you've created? My voice was low now, almost a whisper. Why don't you ask Lily to do that for you? She's the one you're with now, isn't she? There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought he might actually say something. Meaningful, something that might make me believe that there was a shred of care left in him. But all he did was sigh. I need your help, Summer, he said, his voice softening again, but with no real warmth behind it. This isn't about you or me anymore. It's about clearing this up, for the sake of my family. For the sake of our families. Our families? I repeated, incredulous. What do you think this is, Ethan? Some business deal? Some contractual obligation that I'm supposed to just agree to? I'm not some pawn in your game, okay? You're not going to use me to clean up your mess, not after what you did to me. I heard him shift on the other end, but I couldn't tell if he was angry or just exhausted. Summer, please. I'm not trying to make this harder than it already is. But we need to do this. I need to do this. For my family. For my future. His words hung in the air like a dagger poised to strike. I could feel the weight of them, pressing against me. It was all about him, wasn't it? About his image, his reputation, his family. Everything else, the pain I had suffered, the destruction of my life, was secondary. I wasn't important. I was nothing. Forget it, I said, my voice colder than I ever thought it could be. You're on your own, Ethan. You made your choice. And I made mine. I ended the call before he could say another word. The phone dropped from my hand, and I collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. I didn't know what I felt anymore. Betrayal, anger, exhaustion, it was all tangled up inside of me, a mess I didn't know how to untangle. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going to let Ethan or Lily win. Not again. Days passed, and life felt like it was moving in slow motion. I tried to focus on the practical things, the lawyer I'd hired, the process of making sure my life didn't fall apart entirely. But the weight of the world seemed to be constantly pressing down on me. And with every step I took to clear my name, it felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling faster than I could rebuild. The internet didn't forget me. The video continued to circulate, even as new ones were made, adding new layers to the narrative of my downfall. I was the villain. I was the one who had ruined everything. But despite the pain, despite the loneliness, something inside of me shifted. I wasn't just going to let this slide. I wasn't going to stay silent while they tore my life apart. I was going to fight back. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. I let the silence between us linger, feeling my pulse thundering in my ears. My breath was shallow, every word I spoke like a battle fought inside me. And for once, I felt the weight of every single word. This time, there was no backing down. You're right, I said, my voice dangerously calm. You're absolutely right. You walked away from me. You left me to face the consequences of your choices while you and Lily got to live your fairy tale life. And now, you want me to clean up your mess again? I could hear the frustration in his breath, the quickening of his voice. Summer, I don't have time for this. I'm doing what I can to fix things with my family, with Lily. You're the only one still holding on to this resentment. I don't have the luxury of sitting here arguing with you about the past. We need to move forward. I could feel the words cut into me like a blade, each one more chilling than the last. Move forward. As though what had happened didn't matter. As though the pain, the humiliation, the public shame I'd endured, was all something I should just get over. Move forward? I repeated, my voice rising again, cracking under the strain. You're right. You've moved forward. You've moved forward to a life with Lily, to a perfect future where you're no longer burdened by me. But let me tell you something, Ethan. You're not going to get to play the victim anymore. Not after everything you've done. You don't get to walk away and leave me to clean up the mess you made. I could hear him shift on the other end of the line, a sigh escaping his lips. Summer, I don't want to fight. This isn't about you and me anymore. This is about clearing the air, making sure everything G's settled so we can all move on. Just help me with this. I'm asking you to clear up the misunderstanding. That's all. Please. I was done. Absolutely done. The nerve. The absolute nerve of him, asking me for help. After everything he had done, asking me to help him after betraying me so completely. Asking me to fix things for him while I was left with nothing. The way he spoke, like everything could be erased with a few words. The selfishness of it was beyond belief. No, I said, the word a final declaration. No, I'm not helping you. Not this time. Not after everything. I could hear the change in his tone, the frustration bleeding into his voice. Summer, please. Just help me. I don't care about anything else. I just need you to tell the world that our engagement was a mistake, that it wasn't real. That we were just pretending to be together. Do that, and everything will go back to normal. It'll all be over. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. His words were cold, calculated, and devoid of any real empathy. He wasn't asking for forgiveness, or for understanding, he was asking for me to erase the truth, to rewrite the story in a way that benefited him. And in return, he offered nothing. Nothing but a quick fix. I'm not doing that, I said, voice trembling now with a mix of rage and disbelief. I'm not going to help you lie. I'm not going to be your scapegoat again. You've destroyed my life once, Ethan. You're not doing it again. I hung up the phone before he could respond. I didn't want to hear his excuses anymore. I didn't want to listen to his pathetic pleas for help. Ethan had taken everything from me, my love, my future, my family's respect, and now he was trying to take my dignity as well. I wasn't going to let him. That night, I barely slept. The events of the day replayed in my mind like a broken record, every detail magnified, every word that had been said haunting me. The anger inside me was a fire that refused to die. The thought of Ethan, standing there with Lily, going about their lives while I was left to pick up the pieces of my own shattered world, it made my stomach churn. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I didn't waste any time. I got dressed in a black blazer and skirt, grabbed my laptop bag, and made my way to the law office. I couldn't trust my emotions anymore. If I was going to fight this battle, I needed to do it the right way. This wasn't just about Ethan anymore. It wasn't just about his lies or his broken promises. This was about me taking control of my own life again. The moment I stepped into the office, my lawyer greeted me with a serious NOD, his eyes immediately taking in the tension in my posture. "You've made a decision," he said, his voice steady but knowing. "Yes," I replied, my voice cold and firm. "I want to take action. I want to go after Ethan and Lily, legally. I'm going to make sure they pay for everything they've done to me." The lawyer's expression shifted slightly, his brow furrowing in concern. "Are you sure? This could get messy, Summer. There's a lot of public sentiment on their side right now. It could get ugly." "I don't care," I said, determination flooding my veins. "I'm done being the villain in their story. If they want to make me the bad guy, fine. But this time, I'm going to make sure they understand what it means to cross me. I want to sue them both for defamation, for slander, and for the emotional distress they've caused me. I'm done being their punching bag." The lawyer nodded, a look of approval in his eyes. "All right. We'll start the paperwork. But this is going to take time. You have to be ready for the fight." "I'm ready," I said, my heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. I didn't know how long it would take, or how hard it would be, but I was no longer the woman who had been left alone to face the consequences of other people's actions. I was going to fight back. And I was going to win. Ethan's voice trembled for the first time since the conversation began. It was a rare crack in his typically composed facade. "Summer, please. I didn't mean for things to go this way. I never wanted this." His words hung in the air like a delicate thread, but the anger that had been building inside me had finally reached its peak. I wouldn't be fooled by his remorse anymore. It wasn't real. It couldn't be. This was the same man who, only months ago, had begged me to marry him. The same man who had promised to stand by me forever and then thrown me away when things got too hard. Now he wanted me to clean up his mess, to fix everything for him, as if nothing had changed. "I know what you're doing," I said, my voice barely a whisper, yet carrying the weight of everything I had gone through. "You think I'll just let you walk back into my life like this? You think I'll help you, after everything? After you abandoned me, after you chose Lily over me and do you let the world destroy me while you went on with your life? No, Ethan. I'm done." There was another long silence on the other end. For a moment, I almost thought he had hung up, but then I heard him, his voice small and strained. "I never meant to hurt you." I snorted, the sound bitter. "You didn't just hurt me, Ethan. You destroyed me. You destroyed everything. The wedding, the family, the reputation, my life, and you just think a few words will make it all better?" I shook my head, my hands trembling as I tightened my grip on the phone. "I don't need your apology. I don't need you. Not anymore." And then, as if to punctuate everything, I ended the call. It was final. The seconds ticked by in the deafening silence that followed, but I couldn't allow myself to dwell on it. I couldn't afford to break down now. I was stronger than that. Stronger than the man who had abandoned me, stronger than the woman who had stolen him from me, and stronger than the version of myself that had believed in their lies. I stood up from the chair, my body heavy with exhaustion but also something else. A strange sense of clarity. I had been drowning in my own grief, in the ashes of a life that no longer existed. But now, for the first time in what felt like forever, I could finally breathe. No more pretending. No more trying to please anyone. No more waiting for Ethan to save me, to apologize, to fix things. The only person who could fix me now was me. As if to solidify this newfound determination, I picked up the stack of documents on my desk, papers related to the divorce, the legal aftermath of the shattered wedding, all the things that had once seemed insurmountable. But now, they felt different. They felt like a clean slate, a way to reclaim my life. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I didn't care about Ethan or Lily anymore. I focused on rebuilding myself from the ground up. I found new purpose in my work, in my passion for design, and in taking control of my future. The divorce proceedings were swift, and the legal battles were grueling, but they didn't matter. Nothing mattered more than regaining control of my own story. Ethan and Lily may have taken away my wedding, my reputation, and my happiness, but they could never take away my will to move forward. Ethan tried to reach out again, once, twice, but I didn't answer. I didn't need to hear his explanations anymore. He had made his choice, and so had I. Weeks turned into months. I threw myself in to my career, making a name for myself in a field that I had once put on hold to appease everyone else. I designed new projects, took on fresh challenges, and started living life on my terms. No longer defined by my past, by the relationship that had torn me apart, I was finally free. Then one day, as I sat in my office, a notification popped up on my phone. It was an article, a headline. Lily and Ethan's marriage crumbles after scandalous wedding drama, but what's really going on? I opened the link, half expecting to find another round of gossip. But this time, something caught my eye in the first few lines. It wasn't just about the wedding, about their failed promises or their public drama, but about them. Ethan and Lily were facing serious issues. Legal problems, a potential lawsuit, and whispers of betrayal that were eating away at their perfect world. I couldn't help but smile a little. It wasn't out of malice. It wasn't out of spite. It was because, for the first time, the weight I had been carrying all these months felt lighter. I had moved on. I had let go. But the truth? It was coming to light. And as their world slowly crumbled around them, I realized that maybe, just maybe, they hadn't won. Because no matter how much they tried to rewrite the narrative, no matter how many times they tried to manipulate the story, the truth had a way of finding its way to the surface. In the end, it wasn't just their lies that ruined them, it was their inability to face the consequences of their actions. They had underestimated the strength of a woman scorned, a woman who would rise from the ashes and rebuild her life. And that woman was me.